And oh, it's not recorded. Okay. Okay, so number 3 and number 4. Sorry, number 3 is a meditation object by itself, and number 10 is a meditation object by itself. So this is for number 3 and number 10 is a meditation object by itself, and the rest of the numbers are basically how do you call it? In a way, like evolution of detachment. Yeah, we talk about going against the stream. So the rest can be experienced. The more we practice detachment or impermanence, then one will experience these drawbacks, abandoning, dispassion, and so on. Okay, and yeah, actually number 4 is number 3 is very similar. Okay, so these things can be practiced by themselves also, unless a practitioner have unlocked that experience. For example, if a person have let's say experienced cessation, number 7, then he can just meditate on that. But if a person have not experienced cessation, like a beginner, then you ask him meditate on cessation, then it's a bit hard for them to conceptualize. So probably in this case, this monk, Venerable Girimānanda, probably has, is considered well practiced, has more or less experienced certain level of insight, and the Buddha feels that he doesn't need to personally sort of like spend the time to go down, travel all the way there to just give him a talk on something he has experienced. So it's more like a reminder. So he asked Venerable Ananda to remind him, just recite all these practices, these steps, and hopefully can give this Venerable Girimānanda this kind of recollection, a kind of moral support, and hopefully kind of boost his morale, and hopefully can recover. Okay, next. So I'll just go through one by one and let's see how this goes. And what is the perception of inconstancy? There's the case where a monk, having gone to the wilderness, to the shade of a tree, or to an empty building. Okay, so this statement, where a monk having gone to wilderness, shade of a tree, empty building, this one will be repeated, I think, throughout all the 10 perceptions. So the venue-wise, okay, first is a case where a monk. So in this case, because the target audience is the monk, or this particular context, and the Buddha is referring to his Venerable Girimānanda. But if let's say we are applying, it can be any practitioner who is serious in going against the stream, or interested in going against the stream. So venue-wise, you have this wilderness, then you have a shade of a tree, or an empty building. So wilderness doesn't necessarily have to be like under a tree. So in this, the monastic, these Dhutanga practices, these 13 optional Dhutanga practices, they can mention like in a cave, in a plateau, anywhere, in an open area even, anywhere that's secluded. Yeah, so you can just find any spot you find comfortable, and you can practice there, practice your meditation there. So that's one of the suggestions. Then you have empty building. Empty building. So interestingly, you don't have to be even in the wilderness, as long as you have somewhere sheltered and less disturbance, then it's good enough. Okay, reflecting, thus form is inconstant, feeling is inconstant, perception is inconstant, fabrications are inconstant, consciousness is inconstant. Right, so basically reflection on the 5 aggregates. Yeah, so this is Ajahn Thanisaro's translation. So you have these fabrications. Other translators will use mental fabrications, right? And so these are the 5: form, feeling, perception, mental formation, and consciousness. So normally we always talk about this in the past several lessons, and also in our meditation routine we always talk about investigating or observing the arising and passing of the 5 aggregates. And it's very important. Thus he remains focused on inconstancy with regards to the 5 aggregates. This ananda is called the perception of inconstancy. Right? And this is very, how do you call it, in line with this right mindfulness. In right mindfulness, there's always this mindful arising and passing of phenomenon. So the one of the mindfulness is mindfulness of the Dhamma, the 4th foundation of mindfulness. So in that particular category, one of the subcategory is these 5 aggregates. Yeah, so if a person always mindful of this arising and passing of the 5 aggregates, then they're practicing this right mindfulness. And this 5 aggregates is also very important because it's the first noble truth. Because we cling onto the 5 aggregates, that's why we suffer. So in order to overcome the suffering, we need to not cling to these 5 aggregates. So one of the practice or the recommendation is this right mindfulness, and reflection of impermanence itself is considered as thoughts of non-greed and non-delusion. Part of right thought in the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so this is how we link from impermanence to not-self. There is a relation, we call this the 3 universal characteristics of Buddhism: impermanence, suffering, and non-self. So I'll just read through first, and hopefully you can get an idea. And what is the perception of not-self? There is the case where a monk, having gone to the wilderness, to the shade of a tree or to an empty building, same venues, reflects thus: the eye is not self, forms are not self, the ear is not self, sounds are not self, the nose is not self, aroma is not self, tongues is not self, flavors are not self, the body is not self, tactile sensations are not self, intellect is not self, ideas are not self. Right, so basically he's talking about the organ and the external object. So we haven't covered the consciousness, let's say the eye, the forms, and there's one more, usually this eye consciousness. So this is considered the 12 elements. 12 elements, the 6 sense bases and the 6 sense objects. And if you want to include one more set of 6, then these are the 6 sense consciousness. So the 6 bases, 6 objects, and the 6 sense consciousness. So total there are 18. So in this case, they're using the set of 12. Thus he remains focused on the not-selfness with regard to the 6 inner and outer sense media. This is called the perception of not-self. Okay, so how is this impermanence and not-self related? So usually for beginners, I would not encourage people to straight away jump into not-self. Because if they haven't practiced detachment with regard to impermanence, they will reflect on this concept of not-self with the perception of self. or with the perception of with attachment. Yeah, they still have attachment, and then they reflect on not self. So that can be limiting to just theory only. So if you want to talk about practice, we start off with impermanence, and once a person practice impermanence for some time, then they will see the suffering nature of all formations, because everything don't last forever. Right? If you invest your happiness into all these formations, you get disappointed very quickly. Yeah, if we cling on to any sensation right now, they come and go. Yeah, they don't last forever. Right? So because of this, that is why we reflect on not self. It is not permanent. It is not the true self. It is not a true permanent self. So that's the relation. Because it is impermanent and it's dissatisfactory, therefore it is not self. Yeah, so that's the relationship between the three, impermanent, suffering, and not self. The three universal characteristics, or the three marks of existence. So these are the set of three, and we classify it as the wisdom kind of thinking. So if a person wants to overcome delusion, they start off with this impermanence. Yeah. Okay. Any questions so far before I move on? Okay, then I move on. Okay, so this is a meditation object by itself. And what is the perception of unattractiveness? There's the case where a monk ponders this very body from the soles of the feet on up, from the crown of the head on down. That means you can do it from top to bottom or bottom up, surrounded by skin filled with all sorts of unclean things. There is in this body, so we call this the 32 parts of the body. So I start off reading: hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, skin, muscle, tendons, bones, bone marrow, spleen, heart, liver, membranes, kidney, lungs, large intestines, small intestines, gorge, feces, gall, phlegm, lymph, blood, sweat, fat, tears, oil, saliva, mucus, oil in the joints, urine. Thus, he remains focused on an unattractiveness with regard to this very body. This is called the perception of unattractiveness. Alright, so these are the supposedly complete set of the impurities of the body meditation. I think they didn't mention the brain over here, but never mind. So this is a no-brainer. Normally in our routine, we just think of the external parts of the body. So this is supposedly the more complete set. Usually even for the monastics, when they ordain, they go through the ordination ritual, the ordination ceremony. The preceptor, the person who gives them the precepts or give them the ordination, will just give them 5 parts of the body to contemplate. Yeah, so hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin. So for monks, the minimum is just these 5. So what more for a lay person? Also in our routine, we don't overdo this meditation object, because if a person overdoes it with wrong view, it can be very dangerous. Yeah, it can be very dangerous. There's one example from this 𝐷𝐻𝐼𝐿𝐼 Sutta. Some monks, probably not really guided personally by the Buddha themselves, then they start to take the teachings out of context, and they say, oh, the Buddha praised these impurities of the body meditation, so they overdo it. So they practice and until they get so much aversion to the body, until they decided to commit suicide. Yeah, so this is the danger of practicing without proper guidance, without proper view. Yeah, so so the Buddha came by the place and again asked Venerable Ananda to round up the surviving monks, and the Buddha sort of have to re-educate them. And for those monks who are so bent on aversion to the body, then the Buddha said, okay, switch to the breath meditation. Don't do this meditation anymore. Okay, so normally this meditation is to overcome lust, overcome greed. It's meant to specifically sort of fight the defilement, right? Like any meditation object, it can go haywire also without the right view, without treading the middle path. So if a person just think of the body parts only, without reflecting on impermanence, then basically they cling on to that visual aspect of the body. If let's say they visualize something disgusting, let's say they visualize, I don't know, maybe the blood or the feces, and they just do it without thinking of impermanence, then they just think, oh, disgusting, disgusting, disgusting. Over time, it becomes aversion. So if we view any part of the body, it could be visually or even through visualization, one will either develop pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, or neutral feeling. Yeah, same with the dependent origination. So just by having visualization or seeing these parts of the body themselves have no Dhamma value. Right? Likewise, any doctors, any surgeon, anyone doing autopsy, funeral directors who handle the body day in and out, viewing the body themselves won't make them enlightened. Yeah, they might be in that profession for decades. So, in order to have wisdom, to transcend just by seeing these parts of the body, to gain wisdom, that's why you need to have the reflection of impermanence. So probably that's why the reflection of inconstancy is placed first in the meditation. So it's very important to have a right view, to reflect on the 5 aggregates as impermanent before you proceed on to any meditation object. Yeah, without having this right view, then you can cling on to any meditation. For example, the breath. If you do not have the goal of reflecting on impermanence, then you just focus on the breath only. Anybody doing exercise or doing Qigong can just observe the breath. No big deal. So even like loving kindness, if a person do not have reflection of impermanence, you just wish a certain person well and happy, then sometimes there will be these past baggages, or sometimes a person chase after the dramas formed when thinking of a certain person. They might end up falling in love with that person they meditate on, so that is not really encouraged. So that's why you need to have right view and reflect on impermanence. So again, this is the ancient way of classifying the 32 parts of the body. So probably in the modern day science, modern day medical advancement, we can even talk about cells, talk about DNA. So who knows, you can even talk about billion parts of the body, right? But the whole idea is there must be a right view of detachment. It's not to, okay, I want to visualize this. So there are meditators who do this not because they want to let go of the body. Yeah, they do this visualization meditation to get psychic power because that's one of the visualization recommendations to get this psychic power. So they spend the whole day visualizing the body. So again, if a person doesn't have wisdom, they may go crazy. They may get depressed, or if they chase over this, let's say, because we still have defilement. So if a person, when they meditate, they have restlessness, They may end up daydreaming, have stray thoughts, and instead of fixing on the meditation object, they fix on the stray thoughts. Yeah, so that's where they get all the funny kind of emotions, depression, and so on. So we try not to overdo it in our routine. We just do a short external parts of the body only. We don't go into the internal organs and stuff like that. Okay, so I end my sharing here and I open the ground to Q&A. Hopefully it's not too heavy. If I cover all 10, it will be too much. Anyone here has any issues, any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah, say that, yeah.
Just thinking about this, forgotten his name, who is ill and suffering in pain. For someone like that, having illness and body is uncomfortable, and Buddha proposes 10 perception to the approach of using 10 perceptions in this kind of setting, would that be too much for the mind if it's too occupied by the suffering of the body? I'm just wondering, because I think to lay people, it would be a lot tougher, I think. I'm just want to see what your advice is for lay people.
Yeah, very good observation. Right? So that's why normally I won't recommend this as a remedy or cure for illnesses. So like what we mentioned earlier, sometimes you have to take the scripture to understand the context. So for this case, it's just to address this particular monk, this Venerable Girimānanda. So if we do a comparison with other monks who are ill, the Buddha don't teach this 10 to all the other sick monks. Yeah, so probably this Venerable Girimānanda is considered quite advanced practitioner already. Yeah, so it's a special case for him lah. So yeah, you are right. It may not apply to everyone who is sick in general. Probably this is just for Venerable Girimānanda.
Thank you, Patik. Yeah, do you have any advice if someone, more of the lay people in kind of their illness, suffering with body discomfort, what would be, because often they would say they can't focus. What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, very true. Yeah, so normally that would depend on first what's their do they have any practice beforehand? Yeah, so they have to use whatever they are familiar with and work on that. So if a person who has totally no like meditative experience, no spiritual kind of training beforehand, then a bit hard. Yeah? So they may want to start off with thinking of all the good deeds they've done before. Make the mind elevated, and if they have any person or religious figure or any divinity that they have faith in, then they can keep on recollecting on that virtue. Yeah, so that becomes samatha kind of thing. So like the Buddhist context would be like nian pho, think of the Buddha's quality or the Buddha's name, and they sort of keep reciting. So that would help usually in most cases. So most people that I come across, they normally do that.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. So it's also advised, if a person have any fear, recollect the triple gems. So in pain or any strong, unpleasant emotion, then they think of the triple gems. Yeah.
But Bante, if the person is really at deathbed,
Yeah.
would it help him?
Depends on how much effort they put in, and how much faith they have. Yeah, and in the end, it's all about creating the karma.
So that also has to depend on the sick, the dying person, right?
Yeah, what they did in their entire life, how much good karmic reserve they have, and also we call the death proximate karma. Now, how intense are they at the last moment? How much commitment, how much effort, even at the last moment, they want to put in? So that may help also.
If let's say this person has got no good karma, how, Bante?
And then they have to place all the bets at the last moment.
Oh.
Yeah, they have to work very hard at the last moment. So normally we don't try that. We play safe. When we're still alive and well, we practice beforehand. Then it's more like a safety net. All the merits and whatever spiritual practice or meditative states will help cushion the last moments.
So if don't, that means game over. You cannot be safe really.
Even if you talk about the very, very last resort, if let's say they do have relatives and the relatives are spiritual in nature, then they may dedicate merits to the deceased. And again, that will depend on the living relatives. But if a person really want to play safe, depend on themselves, then one needs to work hard when we're still sort of healthy. Yeah?
Thank you, Bante.
Sorry, work hard means in meditating, is it?
Any kinds of accumulation of merit. So meditating is one way of accumulating merit or good karma, positive karma. Yeah. So doing good, doing charity, think of good thoughts, good actions, good speech, all those. Yeah. Any other questions? All okay, no issues. How about the Facebook comments? Okay, if there's nothing, then we go for a 5-minute break and we come back for this guided session. Huh? Okay, see you all in 5 minutes time. Okay, let's see who else has returned. All right. For those who are here, while waiting for the rest to come, anyone has anything you want to clarify?
One thing, like just now I asked you, if this person really has no merits at all, and then he doesn't practice faith, so how as living relatives we can help this person?
Yeah, so for living relatives, right, if let's say the person is still in pain and alive, you can ask them, there are different kind of meditation themes that is not religious in nature, like thinking, recollecting all the good deeds you've done. We call this Chaganusati, mindfulness of all these, all the good deeds you've done. So that way, one can keep on replaying all the good deeds, and it will keep on generating good karma.
But if this person really has no good karma to recollect, not game over, right?
Yeah, that's why whoever is close to them have to do the research. Need to dig out what's good for them. If they really don't have anything good, then any good role model they know of, doesn't have to be a religious figure, any wholesome good role model that they admire, then they can use that also, think of their positive qualities, so that will help also.
Hope so, really hope so too, yeah.
Maybe possible for people who have no merits and
Yeah, surprised there are such people.
Yeah, so if if really they can't think of anything, then it's not really their bad karma already. Throughout their whole life, if they don't plant in the causes, then too bad.
Even Bante, even we chant, verses from the Parita Sutta for them.
Okay, so sometimes have to do with the personal touch, what's your intention behind, how do they perceive your chanting, or do they perceive it as, you're trying to help them? If they feel touched by your actions, and that chant might be perceived or received positively. If they do not perceive it that way, and you start chanting to them, then again, if they might take it the other way around.
So you cannot wait till when that moment they are really very, very gone. Then you start doing the chanting for them, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of the last end, the scenario, if we talk about the living relatives or close friends, has to do with their, the personal relationship, their the personal touch and all those. Yeah, there's a lot of mutual understanding involved, and then they'll know what to do. So sometimes monks get invited. Oh, I got this so and so are going to pass away, very sick, come and do chanting for them. Then I need to ask first, do they want the chanting or not? If they don't want, then you invite me down, then it's like, then we chant, then they don't want to listen. It's like it creates more aversion. Yeah, so it has to do with understanding.
But if really like they are already almost going already. Yeah, when they are pulling through, they are pulling on with the suffering is pulling them on.
Yeah.
With the chanting, how much will it help them?
Yeah, so if they are already into chanting, then definitely it will help.
But if this person not spiritually inclined,
then it depends on what are they facing at their last moment. Are they struggling If they are struggling, then they will pull any kind of strings. Yeah, so maybe that might help.
You gotta understand is most time patients they have fear in them. Because fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially those who are not they are not inclined to faith. So if during that moment, how can we reassure them? We cannot give empty promises. Yeah.
Yeah, so whatever they first is like hospice care and so on, they've already been like interviewed, what's your belief system and so on. So if they are open to chanting, then of course by all means you chant. At least they are receptive to it. Yeah, but if let's say they already have other forms of practices, let's say if they're free thinker but they don't want any don't want any kind of religious chanting at all, then no point.
Yeah, that's true. But somehow I think the person would have fear because this person has never practiced throughout life. Yeah. So it was very difficult.
Right, because first of all, we do not know their background. Some people may have lots of fear and aversion to religion. So even if you're out of goodwill, you want to do chanting, then they take it the other way around. So may not be helpful at all.
Thank you, Bante.
Okay, all right. Okay, anyone else? Okay, if there's no issues, then we can proceed with the meditation. So we start off with finding a comfortable sitting position. Make sure you're upright and the rest of the body relaxed. Okay, then we are going to do the first routine, impurities of the body, and we're going to visualize all the hairs of the head, hairs of the body, from head to toe, and every time we generate a new image, we are going to wish it well and happy. A new patch of hair, well and happy, new patch of hair, well and happy. So this to overcome the craving of aversion. So how much repetition or effort one puts in is kind of habitual training. So even at the last moment, do we still have this habit? Or does the mind easily run off to distractions? So keep on wishing all the hairs well and happy. how do you know you generated enough good karma, enough merits? That is, if your craving is reduced, the mind is more settled, more calm. So thinking of the hair alone, no merits and no good karma. You have to generate this right thought. Wish the hair is well and happy. Okay, and if you find your mind relatively calm, then we introduce the other thought, which is on impermanence. So all these hairs go through birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. So you think of the hairs growing and falling, many, many cycles. And as we keep looping this image, we can observe the arising and passing of the 5 aggregates and the inconstancy of the 5 aggregates. So the hair is the form. Actually, the 5 aggregates are together. So you have the form, which is the hair, and you have the feelings, whether pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feelings. Every time the form changes, you have a young hair, what kind of feelings do you have? You have a falling hair, what kind of feelings do you have? Is it the same feeling or a different feeling? And you have this thing called perception. So perception is basically you digging up the past memories. Where did you get the image from? You need a reference, right? How does your hair look like? So that is perception. And every time you put a label to something, you give a name, a jargon, so that is also perception. And your mental formation, 4th aggregate. So every time you generate a new image, that is a new mental formation. And lastly, you have this thing called consciousness. Every time you're aware of that image, that is, you're using the mind or consciousness, because now your eyes are closed, so it's all imagination. And what happens to that consciousness? In between 2 images, hair growing and hair falling, what happened to that consciousness in between 2 images? And if, let's say, you're hearing what I'm talking now, you're using your ear consciousness, your attention, that consciousness, is it always the same? Is it moving around? Is it constant or inconstant? So the emphasis is on mindful of impermanence. Any other phenomenon happening, any emotional or states of mind changing, you just take it as indicator only, passing sceneries. Emphasis is on impermanence. So the mindfulness of impermanence should be done throughout all your activities, standing, sitting, walking, lying down. It's part of right mindfulness. So right now we're using the cognitive aspect of your mind door. So if we are doing other activities like hearing, we also should be mindful of impermanence of hearing, of smelling, tasting, touching, thinking. Okay, then we have to question ourselves, are these hairs truly self? Can we tell the hairs not to go through birth and death? So the next part of the body, we are going to visualize the nails, fingernails and toenails, and we wish them well and happy. And all the nails are subject to birth, aging, sickness and passing away. So you think of the nails growing and falling, many cycles. And as we keep looping that image, we can observe the arising and passing of the 5 aggregates. So the 5 aggregates is the universal equipment that we use to observe the world. So we are not actually dealing with the actual physical nails, but more towards the perception of the nails. And we can ask ourselves, are these nails truly self? And if it is truly self, that means you should have total control over the nails. Ask it not to grow or not to fall, not to get disease, not to change. Okay, then we are going to think of the teeth, all the teeth inside the mouth. We wish them well and happy. All the upper rows of teeth and lower rows of teeth, may they be well and happy. all his teeth are subject to birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. So they keep growing and falling. Even though they fall off twice only, we can keep on repeating. It's just mental detachment exercise. And while we keep looping this image, we can observe the arising and passing of the 5 aggregates. Investigate on these cognitive tools that we cling on and hold on to very much. Okay, and we are going to ask ourselves, are these teeth truly self? Can we tell the teeth not to go through birth and death? So next we think of the skin. From head to toe, we wish all the skin well and happy. Every patch of skin, we wish them well and happy. And all this skin go through birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. So you think of the skin growing and falling, many, many cycles. And as we keep looping this image, we can observe the arising and passing of the 5 aggregates. Okay, and we can ask ourselves, are this skin truly self? Can we tell the skin not to go through birth and death? So the next phase of meditation, we are doing this for sublime states or mind, and we start off with grounding with the 4 element sensations of the body. So this time round, there's no need to visualize anything. We're just using the body sense door. So whatever sensation appear, we just wish them well and happy. No need to control, do not create, do not cling to them, do not fight, do not resist. So the sensations are the 4 elements. We call it earth, fire, wind, water elements. Earth represents any hard or soft sensations. Fire is hot and cold. Wind is fast and slow movements. And water is moist or dry sensations. So these are just general guidelines. In short, whatever you experience, you just wish them well and happy. And sometimes they can come in terms of painful feelings. They are pleasant, painful, uncomfortable. Sometimes they're pleasant, they're comfortable. So whatever feelings or sensations that come, we wish them well and happy. So right now, even without any sharp, severe pain, we should try to sort of increase this rate per reflection per minute. So that really in times of severe pain or illness, then we have this second-hand nature to reflect in a rapid manner. If you find your mind relatively calm, then we take note of this state of mind as a restricted form of loving kindness. And one way to transcend beyond the desire realm, this sense doors. It's to sometimes enter, we call it concentration. So this would be the kind of merit that can cushion pain. So we are going to now cultivate this boundless loving kindness, and we are going to wish all beings in all directions well and happy, above, below, and all across. So no need to push the mind, let it extend naturally by itself. And also importantly is not to visualize anything. We are using the universal, non-discriminative approach. So all beings are made of these 4 elements or the 5 aggregates. So whatever sensation that appear, we wish all beings well and happy. So it doesn't matter whether it's inside the body or outside the body, near or far. We keep on wishing all beings well and happy. New sensation arise, may all beings be well and happy. New sensation arise, may all beings be well and happy.
When going on a trip, the first
In order for this to work, it has to be friendliness or goodwill to all beings, not to any particular person. So the wish is for, may all beings be well and happy. And if all the conditions fall in place, we keep repeating, have this right effort, right thought and everything, and one may develop this right concentration. So the cultivation of loving kindness usually may lead one to enter the first level of concentration, which is denoted by the emotion of joy and happiness. So if there's any increment of joint happiness compared to the restricted form of loving kindness, and that will indicate the first level. And regardless of what you experience, keep on emphasizing on generating the right thought, keep on wishing all beings well and happy. Okay, then we're going to add some insight, some wisdom, and we're going to reflect on impermanence, how to shake off this clinging and attachment. So every moment you need to observe all the sensations, how they keep changing. So that is your real-time evidence. And in the meantime, we can sub-vocalize in the mind, reflect any word or phrase that is associated with impermanence. You can use rising and falling, anicca, impermanence, and whatever is to your liking. So that is to convert the observation into wisdom. And let's say that joy and happiness start to disappear, and this combination of loving kindness and impermanence may lead one to this fourth level of concentration, which is denoted by the emotion of equanimity. So it's a neutral and kind of refreshing sensation. And regardless of what you experience, keep on reflecting on impermanence. Once we stop, only means clinging. So never stop reflecting. Okay, then we move on to the second sublime state, which is compassion. So for compassion, we also wish all beings may they be free from suffering. So regardless of health status, whether they're sick or healthy, rich or poor, as long as beings cling onto the five aggregates, then there will be suffering. Huh? So the non-discriminative approach, as long as we detect any sensation, part of the five aggregates, then we start to wish all beings may they be free from suffering. A new sensation arise, may all beings be free from suffering. New sensation arise, may all beings be free from suffering. So likewise, we are using for this to work, if you don't want to stray off to this any kind of self-attachment or over-dramatization, then we have to use the non-discriminative approach. Keep on wishing all beings may they be free from suffering. And if you do it correctly, one may enter the second level of concentration, denoted by the emotion of joy and happiness. This is the real recharging kind of compassion. So the compassion that's practiced wrongly will lead to depression or burnout. Normally clinging to too many negative things, over-dramatizing negative things. So you tread the middle way, keep coming back to the right thought, right effort. Okay, due to time constraints, we can slowly end the session, but before we conclude, same gentle reminder that in all activities, as long as we maintain this boundless, sublime states, then this is the highest or noblest living. And with that in mind, we can gently open our eyes, formally end the session, but informally still can generate right thought. Okay, any questions at the moment? Everyone okay? Then if there's no issues, then we proceed with the dedication chant. Namodana. Akasata ca bhumata devanaga mahirika punyang tang anumoditva chirang rakantu loka sasanang edavata ca amihi Sapada punya sapadang, sabbe dewa, sabbe buddha, sabbe satta anumodantu, sabba sampati siddhya. Dedication of merits to departed. Idang me nyatinang hotu, sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyatinang hotu, sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyatinang hotu, sukhita hontu nyatayo. And aspiration. Imina punya kamena mame bala samagamo. Sadang samagamo hotu yavani bana patiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, and we end off by paying respects to the Buddha by giving 3 vows. First vow, second vow, and the third vow. Okay, and that's the end of the class and announcements. We won't be having classes for the next few weeks. We'll be having this retreat organized by MSBS, right? The main organizer. And we'll be back again. This online class will be back after 23rd July. Anything from Terence? Okay, if not, then see you again after 23rd July.
Thank you, Bante.
Okay,
Thank
no
you, Bhante.
problem.
Everyone.
Okay, retreat.
Bye.
Right.